Yes, hello and welcome folks. It's Chris here from the Ministry of Dice, otherwise known online as the True Mr. 6, and I'm back once again with a video for our Having a Brew series. The Having a Brew series is where we talk about team building, card combos, game mechanics in the game of Dice Masters, and for this video today what I'd like to talk about is the idea of casual formats you might like to try down at your friendly local gaming store. Yes, that's right. So I get together with a little group of friends every Tuesday night down at my local gaming store, which is Element Games in Stockport. And we like to mix things up a little bit by setting ourselves quirky little team building challenges or setting weird and wonderful restrictions to encourage us to find new combos, dig out some dusty cards from the ring binders that don't normally see the light of day in a competitive format, and to test our team building capabilities to see if we can come up with new and interesting ideas. And what I'd like to do today is walk you through a couple of those that we've tried in recent years that have proven particularly popular with us, and see if there's something that you might enjoy trying out down with your friends at your local gaming store. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's see what's first on the list. Single affiliation. We love single affiliation down at my local gaming store, and in fact we love it as a format to use in MoDPDM tournaments as well. It's our belief that this is very much at the heart of how the game is meant to be played, really, because one of the most attractive things in our view about Dice Masters is that kind of what if element of talking about, you know, what if the Avengers had a ruck with Batman and his Bat family folk? What if a team of monstrous dragons had a rumble with the Avengers? What if the X-Men duked it out with Deadpool's crew? Although that one probably does happen in the comic books, but you get the idea. And so single affiliation is pretty straightforward. It's where you set a limit on your core 8 cards in your team to say that you can only use cards if they share the same affiliation symbol. You can see there on the screen I've got the X-Men and the Bat family as an example, but there's loads in Dice Masters. It doesn't just end there though, you can play around with this format even more. We like to limit the actions that you can use and sort of state that they must be thematically connected to the affiliation that you use. So with the X-Men there, for example, you might want to look at the Blackbird or Xavier's school, but that's the only affiliation that you could see those actions used in. Or with the Bat family, you might want to throw in a Batmobile or a Bat Signal or a Batarang. There's a theme there. Or Avengers ID card or Thor's hammer, Mjolnir in an Avengers team, or that car thing in the Deadpool set that Deadpool drives. Anyway, you get the idea. So you might want to introduce actions into the mix, but have a little bit of a rule around how they thematically connect to the rest of the team. No Ring of Winters on your Dragon Monster teams, folks. We also do fun things like we limit the villain affiliation across the intellectual property lines. So if you're making a villain team, you can only make Marvel villains, DC villains, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villains. A couple of reasons for this. I think firstly it introduces a deeper kind of team building challenge, but also to make it fair, kind of restricting the card pool in villains a little bit more so that it's a little bit more balanced across the affiliations. And we also like to say stuff like your basic actions. If you're using an X-Men team, for example, you can only use basic actions from Marvel sets, or if you're using the monsters from D&D, you can only use basic actions from the D&D sets. So we really love this affiliation. We play it all the time. There's loads of really fun obscure combos that you can find from these tribal synergies that the affiliations have from the particular sets that they were released in, and it's just loads of fun to play out that what if and examine what might happen if the X-Men and the Bat family got down to it, seeing who came out on top. Next on the list, Energy Quads. This is a really interesting format. This was brought to the table down at my local gaming store by Mike Ryder, a friend of mine who I roll dice with on a Tuesday night. And I'm not entirely sure where he got the idea, but the concept might be a little hard to explain. Hopefully you'll understand from how I articulate it. But the idea is when you come to your team building, you build 4 card teams. And each of those 4 card teams is one energy type. So you have 4 mass characters. I say mass characters, 4 mass cards, 4 fist cards, 4 bolt cards, 4 shield cards, and then 2 basic actions that you've selected. And the idea is that each of those 4 units gets decided at the outset of each round by a roll of 2 sidekicks. So you sit down across from your opponent, you both roll 2 sidekicks, and the 2 energy symbols that come up, those are the 2 4-card quads that you combine to make your 8-card team, along with your 2 basic actions. If you roll a sidekick, Your opponent chooses that quad. If you roll a question mark, you get an open choice to choose the quad that you want to put in. So you'll essentially have an 8-card team made up of 4 cards of one energy type and 4 cards of another energy type. Really super fun to play around with on this one. It really tests your kind of team building capabilities, because you kind of cornerstones of team building in Dice Masters, where you're looking at your ramp and churn, your win condition, your utility globals, your control, etc, etc. Because you can't guarantee which 4 cards are going to be comboed with which other 4 cards, you need to kind of build your team in a way that you're not over reliant in a combo that sits in one of the other energy types. It also challenges you then to be very thoughtful about the basic actions that you choose, because they might have a global on them that's a specific energy that you may not have an opportunity to roll in the volume that you're looking for. So super fun in terms of the team building, but also then super fun to play with that random element where your team is decided by the roll of those 2 sidekicks at the outset of each round. So yeah, really love that one. We don't play it quite as often because it's a little bit more time intensive for the team building, so we don't always have the time to sit down and come up with basically 2 teams in essence, but one we would definitely recommend because we've had loads of fun playing with energy quads. Next on the list, let's have a look. The Weenie Wars. Very straightforward, this one. All of the cards on your team must be a purchase cost of 3 or less, which, you know, on the surface of it might seem a little wet, but actually we've had some really fun times playing around with some of these, what we like to call weenie cards. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this one is fun. Firstly, there's some great globals that sit on 4, 5, 6 plus cost characters that you just don't have access to in this format. So you're looking for your kind of B grade alternative, or you're looking for other ways of comboing and manipulating your team to work the way you want without access to some of those great globals, which I think is a really fun idea. It's also wonderful when you like having big walls of characters, just getting tons and tons of stuff. In Weenie Wars, you end up buying all 20 of your dice all the time, and so it's just super fun because you're just rolling tons and tons of dice. Lots of fun stuff you can do with swarm characters. I've put swarm characters up on the screen. Lots of fun stuff you can do about like getting weenies out and then bumping them up and seeing if you can make them harder. So on the surface seems a bit limp, but actually we've had loads of fun playing Weenie Wars, restricting ourselves to just cards that have a purchase cost of 3 or less, and seeing what other weird and wonderful, interesting combos we can produce from that card pool. Let's have a look. What's next? The MoDMGE. So the MoDMGE conceptually is the Golden Global Escalation Theory that is an official format from WizKids, where you take championship teams, except for the cards that have globals, and ban them from the card pool that you're constructing and pulling it forward into the modern context. And so this year we've been playing MoDMGE, where we've banned the championship teams from the 2019 championships, which is the US Nationals, the Canadian Nationals, the Graceland Championship, and the European Championship. So we're just taking the top 2 teams, again to reiterate, except for the cards with globals, and putting them on the ban list to really encourage people to sort of look at next tier win conditions, or to look at ways of building combos where some of the over-reliant cards like Shriek aren't in the mix, and give you a little bit more of a flavour. Or, you know, like this year Scarlet Witch has been on the ban list, so it's really given basic action related win conditions a new lease of life in MoDMGE. So really interesting format. It's one we've only just developed recently. We put it on as an MoD PDM format, and then it was used loads in the warm-up and practice sessions that we were having on the way up to the tournament. We've had loads of fun with it. We think it's really interesting, and one that we are going to encourage you folks to use, and we want to try and use more ourselves in the future. Next on the list, let's have a look. Wacky Restrictions. Yeah, we love doing this. We love just when we wrap up of a Tuesday night and we're all in the car park just sort of shooting the breeze and chatting away, we like to come up with weird and wonderful wacky restriction ideas. In fact, young Seth, the teenager of our group, likes to come up with all sorts of weird and wonderful restrictions. So you build your team as normal, you pick your card pool, whether it be golden or modern, but you slam just a random thing that you've plucked out the air down as a restriction and see if you can't make some teams out of it. Let me give you some ideas of some of the wacky restrictions we've had. So we've done stuff like all the dice on your team must be the same colour. Or, here's a good one we did, all cards must have a rank or a title. So every one of your cards must be a lord or a lady or a sir or a captain or a major or a commander, or there's all sorts. Commissioner Gordon's there on the screen. So all your cards have to have a rank or a title. Totally wacky, but really produce some fascinating combos. We've also done things like only plants and animals. So you can only play cards that could be qualified as a plant or an animal. Although be prepared for all the instant messaging and group chat debates about what qualifies for well, the same colour dice is one that frequently gets a lot of chatter, like, is this pink or red, you know? Or in the plants and animals, well, this kind of counts because it's sort of a plant. Well, is it a plant? I don't know. But anyway, just another one of those weird and wonderful restrictions that we've thrown down on our team building. Or another classic which I know is fairly popular worldwide is Lady Nights. So you can only play cards that are female. You know, or you can do other interesting stuff with that too. But these are just a small handful of examples of the type of wacky restrictions where you can kind of look at an element of all the character types that have come into play in Dice Masters from all these different IPs and just just pull something out the air. Just lay something down and then challenge everyone to build a team around that random thing that you've pulled out the air. What's next on the list? Life gain. Yeah, this is a good one. So, actually, we've not played this one in a little while, but when we have played it, it's been super, super fun. So, life gain is all about this idea where, in fact, you kind of flip the life situation, and everybody starts at 0 life, and it's the first to get to recoup 20 life that wins the match. So, you're looking at cards like those that I put up on the screen that gain you life rather than lose your life. Although, in the cut and thrust of the format, you also kind of want to balance that up with a few cards that lose your opponent life as well or do them damage so that you can keep, you know, close the gap and reach 20 before they do by controlling what they've got going on. So a really interesting one, just kind of turns it on its head a little bit. Life gain cards, it's not a hugely popular strategy in Dice Masters, even though they do exist. So it certainly speaks to that agenda of encouraging the use of cards that don't normally get to see time on the tabletop, but it also adds, I don't know, just a slightly different way of thinking about how you build your team, which I think is really interesting, and can, again, that kind of team building challenge is one of the joys of this format too. We do recommend, though, we've come to banning a few cards in time. I think, if I remember correctly, Jinzo was one that hit the list that we said, no, we can't have that. And also, I think there's Alyssa Drac. So go away and take a look at those and consider whether you want them in your format, if life gain is something you might want to try out. Okay then, folks, well, I mean, there's many, many more besides, but that brings me to the end of my casual formats to try at your friendly local gaming store. I love hearing about casual formats that people are playing around and about, so please do get in touch and let me know. Drop a comment in the comments below and say, here's a great format idea, or get in touch, go over to brickroller6.com and hit the contact us button to let us know, or tap us up at the facebook.com/the Ministry of Dice and send us an instant message if you've got any suggestions. Please do the like and subscribe thing. It really does help the channel out and helps us keep going, if for no other reason than it feeds our egos and makes us feel like we want to carry on doing this. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed my little vid, and I'll see you later.